Well, I can make a more down-to-earth remark. There are cosmological models where the universe is infinite in spatial extent, and there are others where it's like a sphere. It has no boundary, there's no wall saying stop, but if you go in a certain direction, eventually you come back to where you came from. So it's that's a possible geometry. So is the spatial extent of the universe finite, or is it infinite, for example? Another thing is, if you start looking at the constituents of the table, you find fibers in the wood perhaps, then you get to chemical compounds, then you get to atoms, then you get to the particles in the atoms. If you keep going down, can you continue forever finding smaller pieces? Or eventually, do you hit something that can no longer, an atom, as the Greeks would say, something that's indivisible?
Does the atom fade away, replaced by infinity, so not finite?
Well, atoms already are not atomic because they have protons and electrons and neutrons.
Exactly.
Right, and according to the current theories, protons and neutrons have gluons inside, and I don't know if they've gone further than that. The electron does seem to be indivisible, so in that sense, it's an atom in that sense. So will we keep finding substrata of reality below forever, or eventually do you reach the ultimate, the things that cannot be divided anymore? With current quantum field theory, space-time at a very small scale should look like foam. This is the problem of virtual pair creation of particles and antiparticles. They can be very massive particles and antiparticles that very briefly come into existence and then annihilate. And this really can have, if they're very massive, even though they exist for very, very short times, the bigger the mass, the shorter the time they can exist. Otherwise, you're violating the law of the conservation of energy.
But what I like also...
It tears space-time apart. So people talk about space-time foam, but what it really means is that our theories collapse at this this scale.
Yeah, because I think a vision that I like quite, it says something to me, is the idea that there is, at a certain level, it's not even a question of particles that seems to have a substance, because sub mean underneath, that's a surface. Substance, that means what stand underneath. It's exactly etymologically what it means, substance.
Oh, that's of course, now that you pointed out.
Substance, what, stand underneath, like a pillar, that you find the pillar that is underneath, what is, and at the end, it's not a pillar anymore, it's actually void. And the void, but it's a fluctuation of the void that gives the appearance of substantiality, and the multiplication of fluctuations step by step create some kind of I would say, crystallization that may give its appearance to atoms, and after to reality that is more and more and more structured. And the fact that it is more and more structured, it creates also time. So one direction of those structured, but only once it is actually crystallized. And so time will be like for me, will be the crystallization of those fluctuations, like those fluctuations that becomes more numerous, so superpositions. Mm-hmm. At the end, the superpositions make them, as I could say, like it's just metaphorically, heavier. And when they are heavier, they are less free, because they are heavier. Like when you're heavier, you're less free, you're less flexible. And so you reach a moment where this lack of flexibility becomes like the arrow of time itself, like the fact that it goes and it looks like causality itself. But if you can, and it's like if the mind was actually the absolute flexibility that is in reality. So when you're using your mind, it's like if you were touching this absolute flexibility.
Oh,
being in a body that is actually heavy because it is the product of these multiple superposition. So
yeah, is this have something to do with saying maybe the universe is mental?
yes, I told you right away that I'm an idealist on a philosophical point of view.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really an idealist on the philosophical. I take that absolutely seriously.
Yes, yes.
I think the world is mental. So I think, for instance, when we are talking about our brain producing the thought, my view is not that the brain is producing the thought. It's what we call the thought is actually the filtration of something that goes beyond us. So it has, of course, the form, the morphology, I will say, in our thought of this filtration. But it's not because it's like a trumpet. The sound as I will say the shape of the trumpet, because it's a certain tube, and if you change the shape, it makes a different sound, and it's what we call different personalities. But it's not because you break the trumpet that the breathing itself, is not there anymore. It's just the shape that allows to make a sound that doesn't work anymore. It's interesting because you know how you say breathe in Latin? Spiritus.
Really?
Literally, you say spiritus. And the word spiritus in Greek, and it means spiritus also, it's pneuma, that made pneumatic.
Breath.
Exactly. So I think there is something here. But I wanted to ask you a question.
Well, the world as information is a little bit as the world as idea. It's not materialistic. I think that quantum mechanics already goes a considerable, in my opinion, step in the direction of idealism, because the Schrödinger wave function is it's a very ghost-like physical entity.
Yes, of course.
It's our knowledge about a particle, for example. And when you make a measurement, it collapses, for example. So that doesn't sound too materialistic to me. That
it is not. But some people, now with the concept of information, I think there are many paradoxes that if we are, because what is, I think I already raised those points in our former session, but now, we can allow ourselves to repeat ourselves because it's like some kind of a synthesis, also a conclusion. An information is like a trace of something, because an information is just when you have an imprint. There is a print of your foot on the sand, and you say, oh, there is an information of the shape of your foot, etc. But when we're saying that maybe the world is made of information, I'm tempted to ask, but so that means as a form of something. What is this something?
That might be a plastic ontology, by the way. If the world is built of ideas or out of information rather than out of matter,
so we could say, and I've never had this idea, I just have it in front of you, but maybe it's a bad idea and I haven't developed it, I haven't tested it even intellectually, that maybe what we call the material world, so the empirical world, the world we see, is actually the imprint of our mind. It's like the trace of our mind. So that will explain that the world, we could accept that the world is made of information, and information is actually our mind that, like some kind of a spirit in those experiments that they do, it leaves a mark, it leaves something. And we just have what it left, and we think that's the real thing. Well, in fact, that's just the mark that is left on the passage, I don't know how when it goes.
It could be information in the mind of God, perhaps.
Yeah. So that's good that you said that.
The trace.
That exactly. That's good that you said that. And so because it's a trace, just one thing, because it's a trace, That's the real why it looks determined. Because it has been like, it's left. So because it's left, it has lost part of its dynamic. But if you come back to the dynamic itself, it's not causal. That's the mind of God itself. But would you say that there is, what kind of link, or maybe there is none, between what you call meta-mathematics and metaphysics?